start off, get your patterns, the panels, and the crisscross halter pattern. And do not forget to indicate the sewing notch references. We crucially need these notches for sewing. These panels, by the way, are for the shell and the lining. For the panels fabric, I simply chose Duchess satin. Duchess is medium to heavyweight and it's exactly what we need for this garment. This is what I'm going to use for the lining and the shell. Next, press your fabric first before cutting the panels. Next, cut the panels onto your fabric. For the center front, I will cut it on the fold of my fabric. The rest, I'm going to cut it as it is. And do not forget to mark or cut the sewing notch references. And as you can see, I've cut these panels ×4 on my fabric for the shell and the lining. Next, serge the corners of the panels to avoid fraying. After serging the corners, we can now sew the shell pieces and the lining pieces. My sewing allowance on each seam line is 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimeter. Next, do not forget to give the seams a press for a clean finish. Some people proceed without pressing, but let's avoid that. Pressing seams gives a clean and professional finish to the garment. Next, prepare your fabric for the crisscross halter pattern. For this pattern, I specifically use a different fabric from the panels called scuba crepe, or in some other countries, it is called neocrepe. This fabric is stretchy but at the same time kind of medium to heavy weight. The reason why I chose this fabric for this project is because we won't be needing any more lining because of its thickness. Next, fold your fabric into 2. Place your crisscross halter pattern. And one tip for stretchy fabrics, if you have pattern weights, it is best to use it more than the pins. Place your pattern weights on top of the pattern and the fabric and cut it in place. Now, if you don't have pattern weights, it's also okay to use pins. Just be very careful not to distort the fabric while pinning. Next, mark or slightly cut the center sewing notch reference. For the side seam notches here at the crisscross halter piece, cut the sewing notch reference equivalent to the sewing allowance, for example, 1 centimeter. Later on, we will fold these areas at the neckline and sew it using the zigzag stitch line from our portable sewing machine. Zigzag stitches are used for stretch fabrics rather than the basic straight stitches. It is more durable and the thread won't break with zigzag stitches. Next, place the shell on top of the crisscross halter piece right side to right side, matching it with the sewing notch references. Match the center notch to the princess seam line. Match the notches from the cleavage at the center front and the notches near the side seam. Next, pin the crisscross halter piece carefully to the shell. Next, I am going to sew the underbust seam line according to my sewing allowance, which is 1 cm or 3/8 of an inch from notch to notch. As you can see here, right exactly on the cleavage at the center front and here at the side seam, there are still remaining sewing allowances to sew. We will use these remaining sewing allowances to attach the lining. Next, get your lining piece. To sew the lining to the shell and the crisscross halter pieces, kind of tuck in the stretchy halter facing it to the right side of the shell. And place the lining right side to right side with the shell. Match the notches and pin the lining to the shell in place. Next, start sewing from the center back. Passing through the underbust. Going to the center front, and on the other half underbust. Going to the other half side seam, and ending the stitch line until the other half of the center back. Next, press the seams open. And next, press it again facing the lining and the shell, wrong side to wrong side. Next, pin the lining and the shell together at the underbust. And top stitch the underbust in about 0.5 cm or 2/8 of an inch away from the seam line. I have also top stitch at the back neckline to give our garment a crisp look. Now that we have attached the lining together with the shell and the crisscross halter pieces, it's time to combine the lining and the shell together permanently. Just simply sew the seams of the lining and the shell together, matching at the waist notches. and sew the lining and the shell together at the center back and at the hemline. Sew these corners in about 0.5 cm or 2/8 of an inch. For the hemline, I will use a chalk to mark up 1 inch or 2.54 centimeters for the fold. Once I have marked the fold of the hemline, I will give this line a press. Next, while folding at the hemline, at the center back, pin in place the hemline and sew this tuck in place. For the hem, I am going to sew this in about 6/8 of an inch or 2 centimeters away from the edge. Next, we can finally attach the zipper at the center back. By the way, the zipper that I am using is YKK Hidden Zipper. To sew the hidden zipper, I will start placing at the left-hand side center back, facing and twisting the zipper from right side to right side, and pin the zipper in place. Using my right single presser foot, it will give me a view of the allowance plate to check if I am sewing the zipper onto the garment with the right sewing allowance. And I will also do the same procedure on the right hand side center back. Once you are finished sewing the zipper at the center back, give it a press for a clean finish. For the neckline here at the crisscross halter or our tie closure, I will mark in first the sewing allowance to guide me for folding. The sewing allowance I used is 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. Once I am done marking the allowance, I am going to turn over the garment on the opposite side and start folding the allowance I have marked, and pin the folds to help me hold it in place. Next, prepare your portable sewing machine. If you are using this kind of sewing machine, it's a bonus for you. But if you are using an industrial sewing machine, chances are the thread will break. And if you have a brother sewing machine like this, program the stitch length from 2 or 3. And also choose the biggest zigzag stitch line. Next, I will simply place the fold of the neckline on the opposite side on my sewing machine. There's no exact measurement, but for better results, sew the zigzag stitch line close to the rough edge of the fabric. And here you go. I will stretch this so that you can see that the stitch line stays intact and the thread doesn't break off. So here is a video of me using a basic straight stitch line on a stretch fabric. Visually, it looks good, but since this fabric is stretchy, once I stretched it, you will see that the stitches and the thread is breaking off. This is what we want to avoid. Next, I will place the whole garment on my dress form and I will tie the closure and style it as well. Et voila! So this is my Crisscross Halter Bustier top. Here is the front. Here are the left and right views. And here is the back where the tie closure and the zipper are located. Anyway guys, I hope this sewing tutorial helped you how to create the Crisscross Halter Bustier top. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to comment down below and I will reply as soon as possible. Anyway guys, before I end this video, I would just like to send my gratitude to my La Modéliste members, Ibrahim Blarson, Annika Sony, and Ale Jossie. Thank you guys so much for purchasing the membership here at La Modéliste, and I will make it sure to give you guys more worth it content. And if you like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. And if you super like this video, please give me a super thanks. And if you're not subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, La Modéliste, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And also follow me on my Facebook account called La Modéliste. And I will see you guys again on the next tutorial. A bientôt!